Hello, welcome to More Than Meets the DIY, a virtual education series presented by the Pacific Northwest chapter of the Recording Academy and Sonic Guild Seattle. My name is Ben London, and I'm the CEO of Sonic Guild. We're a nonprofit dedicated to building community that supports the creation and performance of new music by exceptional local musicians. We'll be hosting a new session of this series on the first Tuesday of each month through November, each featuring a specific topic sourced from feedback from our music community. This is our fourth installment of the series. If you want to check out the first three, they are posted on YouTube account named @GrammyPro or search Recording Academy Membership. If you're interested in a better understanding and advocating for musicians' rights, you'll want to join us for next month's session on advocacy, taking place Tuesday, August 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. But today, we're diving into touring. Touring isn't just about playing shows. It's about budgeting, booking, routing travel, and staying healthy on the road. Whether you're planning your first tour or leveling up, this session is packed with real-world tools to help you tour smarter and more sustainably. We have three great speakers today, including Ali Hedrick, a booking agent with Arrival Artists who works with artists like Amel and the Sniffers, Car Seat Headrest, Sufjan Stevens, The New Pornographers, and countless others. Alie Byland, the front person of the band Byland, who just recently got back from their tour opening up for sub-pop artist Deep Sea Diver, and artist manager and music business consultant Mackenzie McAninch. So let's start off today with Ali Hedrick from Arrival Artists, and welcome Ali to the stage.
Well, hello.
Hey,
Nice
Ali, how
to
are
see
you?
everyone.
Nice to see you too. So I've known you, Ali, for quite a long time. You've been doing this for quite a bit, and you work with just some of my favorite artists in the whole wide world. So maybe can you give us a little background on what you do and who you work with?
I am a booking agent, and I've been an agent for 30 years. This
Oh,
year, oh my goodness. Started before the internet was invented. I always think that's a funny thing to say. Can you imagine? Um, I work at a company with 45 people. I started my career in the music business program at Columbia College in Chicago. I then started working for a management company and then transitioned into booking, kind of a process of elimination. It seemed to be the right path for me because if you're a booking agent, you get to pick the artist that you want to work with and champion, as opposed to being a promoter. You might have to, work with artists that you don't really love or some of the other um, music industry places. Uh, what I do day to day is I book and route tours. I have a lot of scheduled phone calls where I do planning. I have a three-person direct team that works under me that is involved in a lot of these calls. They keep all of my Google Docs straight. So my Google Docs have the routings, the venues, the promoters, the merch rates, hospitality, walkout percentages, um, taxes, gross door, ticketing fees, all sorts of things like that. And, sometimes I can get as many as 6 offers for one single date for a band. And you kind of determine what's the best place to go with the band. I also do marketing meetings. I'm involved now with branding. There's a lot more since record labels aren't making as much money as they used to be. A lot of the responsibilities that used to be for a record label have now fallen onto agencies to handle.
well, let me ask you this. Probably the number one question of anybody that's on this call is if they're a musician or working in the industry. Everybody's always like, how do I get a booking agent? So I'd be curious, you've been doing this a long time. You've worked with people at all different phases in their careers. So
Sure.
what goes into your mind? Like what's the decision-making process when you start thinking about taking on a new artist? Maybe talk us through kind of like your internal checklist, or is it just vibe, or what are you going on to determine if you're going to take on a new client to work with?
Well, there's a lot of different things. It used to be, which this still holds true, but it used to be, I would say, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Milwaukee. Okay, can you sell out a venue in Milwaukee that has 300 capacity? Can you sell out a venue in Minneapolis that is 300 capacity? And can you sell out a venue in Chicago that is 300 capacity? So generally speaking, that kind of still holds true where can you travel to a city outside of your hometown and are you selling tickets? And are you selling more than, 20 or 30 just to your friends? Is it a few hundred people? Um, Ways to get a booking agency without those. You think, well, how can I even book those shows out of town? Well, you should be kind of able to do that. But really, it's your streaming numbers. Um, do you have I'll take a chance on a band that has nothing going on if you have a good manager, you have, people in the industry that I know and trust that are championing the band because it can't just be me loving the artist. It's got to be a manager. It's got to be, a publicist, the agent, a record label. If those are all figured out, and there's strong people involved, then I'll take a chance on a band.
Is
But
there
I also internally say to myself, when I listen to the music, I say, do I love it? Number one. And number two is, will the band be able to make money? Am I going to be able to have five people? They're going to be able to make enough money on the road for this to be their permanent full-time job.
That's great. I mean, just to give that context that it's, there's so much that goes into it, and that, you're the work you do, you're not a nonprofit or a volunteer organization, right? That you're trying to find people to work with that you can help work together and collaborate and kind of move them up. Which I'd be curious, like maybe what's an example of an artist that you engaged with really early on in their career and you've helped grow them through the different phases of their touring life, that maybe they were playing 300 seats in their hometown and have kind of grown into a bigger
I
business.
mean, I would say almost 90% of my roster that's happened. And a lot of times it'll be Mount Joy. I picked up Mount Joy. I just fell in love with the music. I heard the songs, they stuck in my head. They were starting, their Spotify numbers were continuing to grow, and I thought, oh, something could really happen with this band. And I had them open up for Head in the Heart on a whole tour. I had them open up for Nico Case on a tour. I had them play some music festivals on smaller stages. They played, I mean, they've played Chicago more than any other city. I think they played Chicago like 33 times in a 3-year period, something kind of insane. So, I mean, generally speaking, I grow bands by just keeping them on the road and trying to put them in as many different scenarios as possible.
And what percentage would you say of people cold calling you or sending you emails saying, hey, we're looking for an agent, versus I would assume that you probably hear about stuff bubbling up in different markets potentially, or is that not the case anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of at a point now in my career since I've been doing it so long that I'm really taking on things that are a little bit more established. So I'm not signing bands that are brand new. But what I do is um, I will sign an art, help another agent at the company sign in more developing artist, and then put them on the team with me. So I'll be there maybe to help them with some of the bigger picture things, look over the routings, help, maybe get them that early slot at Lollapalooza or get them on the BMI stage at a music festival and kind of help them out with some of the festival work. But newer developing acts, I'm usually not signing now anymore. I'm usually signing acts that are kind of in the already selling, 5 to 600 tickets in every major market in the US and Canada.
I think so many times musicians think like, I got to get out on the road. They really want to get out on the road. And I'm just curious, maybe you can clarify, like, what do you think is most important as an artist is kind of trying to develop a career? Is it better to try to really work to your point of like trying to the point where you can sell 300 tickets in your home market? Or is there a benefit from people hitting the road earlier in their trajectory before they can do that? Or do you think that, or is that just going on vacation at some point for artists?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Alie Byland will probably be able to even answer that question a little bit more. I mean, I think it just depends on your drive. I mean, and your desire to be out there. I mean, it can be pretty brutal for some artists and playing to, 50, 60 people a night, just getting out there and not really or even less at some points. You know, I think that you should go on tour when people from around the country are pinging you and asking you. And I'm talking about people in the industry or, things now people use Chartmetric, people pop up on playlist. I mean, I would say getting on playlists, getting your streaming numbers out, or creating those viral moments online to get some attention for your band, and kind of building it up at home. And then going out on the road is a little bit more important than you don't want to go out there too early. It can be a little bit depressing. And sometimes you only get one shot at it to kind of prove yourself to a promoter. Like if go and play and you draw 30 people, you're not getting back in that room, maybe ever.
Wow. Yeah.
Unless you have someone like me already in place to say, no, you're booking them again.
Right. Yeah, you have the leverage. And that, I mean, so much of what you do is relationship based, right? That,
Sure.
anybody could book a tour, but getting people to respond to your correspondence seems like, you have a proven track record of relationships with all these agents around the country.
Or promoters, but yeah, both agents and promoters, yes.
Let me ask you this. So when you're considering taking on a new client or things like that, what do you wish artists knew about the agent or the the booking agent and the artist relationship? What do you wish that they knew, or what you love when they come prepared in some way, so that the collaboration can really be successful?
They have an understanding that you shouldn't want to get on a festival before the festival wants to book you. So there's a lot of artists that are like, I've got to be at festivals, I got to be at festivals. And it's like, no, you don't, because the festival doesn't want you. And I can cram it down their throat, but it really doesn't make any sense. And you'll play maybe one, maybe two. That when the time is right for playing festivals, the festivals are going to come to you and then you're going to make the right money. That's the first one. The second one is don't be precious about playing your shows when you're trying to grow your career. Play as many shows as you can. Like I said, Mountjoy played 33, 35 shows in 3 years in Chicago. They were from Philly. Like, play as many different, you don't want to, if you're playing an outdoor show or something and they say don't play anywhere around town for a couple months, you need to do that and be respectful. But really, play as many different shows as you can, play every different club in the city, um, play in front of many different audiences as possible, and just work really hard.
Yeah.
Don't be precious. Sometimes people are very precious, and say like, I've got to do this or do that, or I'm going to say no to a lot of things. And that to me just says like you're just a little afraid, you're scared. Um, you are precious and more particular about the shows you book once you have a really solid draw. So in the beginning, you are working to get that draw.
Do you have any advice? Because I think that this is a constant discussion at the local level, is how much is too much in terms of shows. And where do you find that delta of like trying to play everywhere and anywhere and then pulling back and kind of testing your draw, like at a larger level, like stepping up to a bigger room? Do you have any thoughts on that? Or do you just feel like that the clubs themselves will tell you like, hey, we want you to book you into this bigger room, but we want you to not play for 6 weeks or
I
2
mean that is true. I mean, if you're while you're building your draw, you play out as many places as possible. But if you were a local band and you want to get to the Showbox or you want to get to the Neptune, yeah, you got to hold 6 months and
Yeah.
then play that room, if not a year.
Yeah.
And honestly, you'll probably make more money playing a show once a month than playing the one big one. But there is something that's a feather in your cap. There's something that's impressive about playing that one big show. And local festivals will take you more seriously if you say, I sold out the Showbox at 1,000 tickets, then you might get on, you know, Bumbershoot or Thing Festival or, something in Portland.
How do you manage, and when you start when you enter in a relationship with an artist, how do you manage their expectations? Like, in terms of what they think that you can accomplish for them versus what they have to do for themselves?
Well, I mean, that's the manager's job.
Okay. Can you maybe unpack that a little bit more? Because you're part of a team usually, right? So,
I'm part of a team. I talk to a band when I sign them, and usually never again, ever.
unless you're doing a drop in at a show or something.
I see them at shows. I mean, I like to talk to them as much as possible, but that's really the manager's job to work on their expectations. And um, yeah, sorry, I don't have more for you on that one.
That's okay. I mean, I guess I'm just so that it's really important, but I assume, let me take a step back. I assume that when you're booking artists these days, it's not just it's tied into a larger promotional cycle, or there's thought behind why they're going out. There's demand. Some artists have constant demand. Some artists it's tied to a new record, or they're going to get a promotional push or whatever that might be.
Hmm.
Maybe you'd said before we got on the call about how far out you're booking these days. So how far are you thinking about artists' careers when you're thinking about
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that it is shifted, and first off, everyone's cycles have kind of synced up, and because of the pandemic, and people are just always touring kind of on top of each other. So that is one thing to kind of think about. Um, Also, things are so much more expensive, so all the ticket prices are going up, and there's a lot more competition. So I do try to explain to them and show them like, hey, taking out a stronger band, doing packages sometimes can make you the same amount of money that if you headline on your own and just take all the money for yourself. I mean, there's constant, I guess, for expectations for bands, that's constantly happening all the time for me. But I'm usually just telling it to the manager. But things like that, oh, hey, you want to play Shaky Knees? Well, Shaky Knees isn't going to be putting in offers for your slot level for another 6 months, but all the venues around Shaky Knees are routing out. So I'm going to have to route the tour, get all the holds, clear the tour, and leave a space in the middle of a tour for Shaky Knees before I know 100% that we're going to get that offer. So there could be, you want to weigh that with them. There's expectations of maybe you get that Coachella offer, but maybe the Coachella offer is $20,000, and you might say like, "Hey, this is great, but let's look ahead." You're always trying to look ahead for the next three plays. Like, okay, it's $20,000 this year, but if we even push it one more year, I think it's going to be $50,000. I think it's going to be $60,000, and remind them and you know, the band and the manager that like, hey, if we wait with this other new record that's coming out or something else is going on, we'll probably get a lot more money. Or, hi, you're an indie rock band and you want to play Coachella. Well, guess what? Coachella doesn't want you.
right?
People with guitars aren't doing as well at Coachella, and it's a little bit harder. Those slots, and people want the DJs, the electronic bands, and some different style of music is kind of doing, rap, hip hop, all those things are kind of doing a little bit better than say the guitar bands are at just Coachella in particular. So you might try to talk a band out of playing a festival, um, things like that.
All right. Well,
I'm trying to keep this on like a
no, this is great.
local level a little bit more, and it's a little bit hard to
No,
do.
no, I think this is good because we have folks tuning in from other parts of the country as
Okay, good.
well. I guess my last question for you is just it sounds like, I mean, at least from the touring space, things are pretty healthy these days in terms of the amount of stuff out there, but we're also starting to hear about festivals constricting, I think a little bit that. What's your philosophy on sort of underplay and overplay in terms of the size of rooms you try to put your clients into?
I mean, you always want to sell the room out, I mean, if you put up a tour and it sells out qu quickly, that's never a good sign. It means you left a lot of money on the table. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's always great to have a sold out tour. Um, I don't know if I have an opinion. I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it. there's so many different scenarios with the band and when the right time. Sometimes you knowingly go into a room that's slightly too large for you because of financial reasons, and you never really like that to happen.
Right.
Um, but generally speaking, I try to get just right every time.
Awesome. Well, Alie, we really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for sharing some of your knowledge with us, and good luck. I can't wait to see a bunch of the artists that you book at different festivals and on tour this summer. So thank you.
Oh,
We appreciate it. So right now we're going to switch over to and bring Alie Byland on the screen to join us. Hey,
Hi,
Alie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for joining us. We can tell people that you're on tour right now because it looks like you're in a car of some sort. But I know that you're just doing some work today. So,
Yeah.
Alie, you can tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a musician. You're a songwriter. But maybe quickly, just for those that may not be familiar with you, a little background on yourself.
Yeah. My band name is Byland, not by sea, but by land. It's my last name. And I've been playing music under that name since about 2017. I put out my first studio record in 2020, working with a producer in Seattle. And then we just put out another one in 2023. So um, we've been touring. We've tried to tour for every one of those record releases or just single releases. And I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I live in Seattle now. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So I guess the biggest question that indie artists always face, or when you're emerging and stuff, is like, when do you decide to try to go on tour, and what's the motivation for that? So maybe tell us a little bit when you were first getting going, how you decided when it was time to try to go play music outside of Seattle, where you were based.
I think we just really wanted to start sharing what we had made with a greater audience. And, there's like a really incredible supportive scene in Seattle, but I think that we didn't want to keep playing the same venues. And, I feel like we were filling out some of the rooms locally and wanting to just see what we could do outside of the city. So we started booking on our own, and it's really hard and really fun. And we had some really bad shows, and we probably still will.
So historically, have you or somebody in your band's orbit done most of your booking? You don't currently have a outside booking agent, is that true?
No, we're still booking everything on our own, and that is. I mean, I've worked with different agents because I've done like I've been able to open like as a support for other bigger bands. So I have met other people that are doing bigger things than me, but it's still kind of the grind.
So
It's
for
still
those,
hard.
yeah. So for those that are considering trying to take on doing some of that themselves, because it's seldom that anybody gets like an established agent right out of the gate. What do you kind of wish you knew now that when you first got started? I mean, what's the hardest part in terms of taking that first step to try to book shows out of town?
I mean, you're just gonna get like a bunch of no's. You're gonna get a bunch of no's or no one responding at all. And I think you just kind of have to put your head down and work really hard and understand that it's not going to be easy. And I would say though, there's some shows that I wish that we didn't do, like just kind of throwing things together and not understanding the vibe and maybe not understanding like different cities and different genres. Like one time we booked a show with like a hip hop band just because we were trying to book something to fill a night. And just the whole vibe was, just not right for what we do. And the show was really disheartening. So I think I think connecting with other artists that really inspire you in different cities and making actual genuine connections, that's been what's helped us the most.
So just to unpack that a little bit more, when you say connect with other artists, are you connecting with them when they would come through Seattle, or are you reaching out to them, or how are you trying to make those connections?
Usually through Instagram. I'll just kind of like look through hashtags of different cities and find artists that I like and find artists that are making music that I like and I think it would be a good fit with what we're doing. And yeah, I'll just try to put together a show with someone that's local to that city because they're going to have more draw than we do, obviously, if we've never been there before. And then, in that same sense, like we've done show trades with certain artists. So if they come to Seattle, we'll kind of like save our uh, support slot for someone that's not local, to kind of like share the love.
You recently just got back from doing a part of a national tour with a deep sea diver, who recent Sub Pop signee, and maybe tell us a little bit about what that experience was like going out and doing a whole tour, opening up for another artist, and then also what was your thinking in your mind about how you could capitalize on that in terms of relationship building in those different cities or different venues that you were playing in?
Yeah, I mean, how we got on that tour at all was just by like being nice, I think, and connecting with like Jessica. She was my first guitar teacher in Seattle, and I just stayed in touch with her for a long time, and I got to tour with them in their band. And I think just being a good vibe and like working really hard, and like, you know, being the one that's like the first one to unpack the van and the last one to finish the job. And I think just like working really hard, and specifically for all those shows, those were definitely venues that we couldn't, you know, have played unless we were supporting them. And uh I just shook as many hands as I possibly could have, and I tried to be as professional as possible and keep our sets, never go over our set time, never be late to load in, have, you know, like get off stage as quickly as possible, help deep sea diver load all their stuff, just being helpful.
Let me ask you this, because I know that on this tour you did some different configurations. You did the full band, and then you did some dates with a subset of the band. Maybe talk about that and what that having different versions of your band allows you to do, and what's the rationale for that.
So we did the whole West Coast with our 4-piece band, and they, yeah, we were able to afford doing that just because it's kind of closer to home. And we took one car and a trailer, and that was fine. But for the East Coast, I definitely couldn't have afforded to pay the whole band for that entire time, because that's like extra hotel rooms, and you know, feeding everybody is just a lot more. And I think that also just making sure that we were off stage as quickly as possible. Like with only 2 people, we had less gear, and it was a lot more economical. And we got to share all the merch, you know, funds and everything just between 2 people. It was we made more money for sure on the West Coast than we did on the West. So,
out of curiosity, did you feel like, what was the audience reaction? Do you feel like that one versus the other, or, you know, were you still selling similar amounts of merch every night? What did you feel?
yeah, I was really curious and kind of panicked about it, because I love my band, and Skylar and I, he's my guitar player. We had never done this configuration before. He played like, I won't get into the weird part of it, but he played like basically a split rig. So he had his bass notes. He had 2 different pickups on his guitar. We filled out the room. I think we crushed it. I'm gonna be honest. It was incredibly fun,
Awesome.
and we, with just 2 people, made so much sound, and the response was extremely positive, which I didn't expect. We made as much money, like we sold as much merch with just 2 people as we did with the full band, and I think that just I'm super, and I was surprised.
Let me ask you this: when you were budgeting to go on these tours, did the expenses end up lining up kind of with what you thought they would be? And maybe you can just tell a little bit. You don't need to give exact amounts or anything, but just like, where does most of your money go while you're on tour? Like, what are the biggest expenses that you folks had to think about to get out on the road?
Gas and food, um, and lodging for sure. Like we tried to stay with friends as much as possible, and I'm down with that. Like I love meeting people and hanging out and connecting, and it's nice to have like a nice shower every once in a while and just like some good sleep, but it's not above me to hang out with friends and stay with people to save money, which we did a lot. So the one thing I didn't expect though is just selling merch. We sold way more. We sold out like everything, and I had to order more halfway through tour, and I don't know. It was a really encouraging aspect of it. We came home and we didn't just break even. Like we actually made money, and it was, yeah, a surprise.
Let me ask you, from a health standpoint, you're the vocalist in the band, so you know, there's savings and payoffs no matter what you do. So sometimes sleeping on friends' floors, you may not get the rest that you would staying in a hotel or things like that. How do you try to monitor your own physical health while you're on the road and supporting that? And then lastly, how do you try to, do you have any tips or tricks for your mental health as well to try to keep focused and not let all the travel and everything affect you adversely?
I mean, I feel like I'm kind of, I really thrive off of connecting with people. So it was really, I really got filled up by just being around people. And that was something I wasn't expecting. Normally I'm kind of a homebody at home. But I think one thing that helped me a lot was I like meditated every day and I didn't drink a lot of alcohol. I just was like really conscious of what I consumed. And I mean, I still had fun. I still had, you know, here and there, like just letting down and relaxing and resting. But overall, I tried to go to bed after shows and I tried to go on runs every morning after getting up and just taking the time during the day. Cause like once you get into load in, like you're on the whole rest of the night. And I mean, it's hours and hours. Like you're just lifting stuff and then you barely have any time to get ready and then you play the show, especially as an opener, like you're kind of just like going. And we were running our own merch, so after the show it wasn't like, oh, I get to go backstage now. I was just like out there talking a lot, so my voice was very, very tired, so I definitely needed to go to bed as soon as we got back.
Well, we're finishing up this section here. I'd be curious, Walter, and hey, thank you for joining us today. It's so great speaking to you, and congratulations on the success. What do you wish you'd known when you first started touring that you feel like you know now? And would you give somebody, what sort of advice would you give to somebody if they're first getting going that you wish you'd known?
That's a really good question. I think just like tempering expectations and you're still a real band even if you're not like touring as much as these bigger bands. Like I think that just keeping in mind, like, why are you even doing this? Like I ask that to myself all the time because sometimes like in this industry there's seasons where it takes more than it gives. And that's something I've just been really conscious of. Like I am doing this because I love making music and I love sharing it with people and I love connecting with people. And it feels like it's the most life-giving thing I've experienced in this life. So I feel like that's just keeping my motivation in check. And it's not bad to want to be famous or something like that, but pretty much none of us will be. So
last question for you. Last question is, was there a magic show on this last tour, like where you kind of were like in a room that you never thought you'd play, or just an experience with the audience that night or something? I think it's important for us we can talk about all the hard stuff, but maybe, was there something where you were like, oh, this is why I'm doing it, or this is where the payoff comes?
Every night. Yeah, it was the time of my life. Like I would do this forever. There were a few nights, we played a song called, we covered a song by Jackson Brown called These Days. And it was so incredibly fun to play that on stage every night. And then afterwards, like people would come up and they were like, you should really record this. And we ended up recording it like while we were on tour, just in like random studios around the States. And that was really, really fun. And then just in general, I think I feel pretty vulnerable when I'm on stage and I usually just share kind of what I'm going through. And when it connects with people, when they come up to me and share that it meant something to them, that's everything.
Awesome. Well, Alie, thanks so much. We really appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Yeah, you guys are the best. Also, Sonic Guild rocks.
Oh, and I should say that Alie and her band, they were a recipient of our Sonic Guild tour support grants that we have in market right now as well, that these grants are specifically set up to help emerging artists try to offset some of these tour expenses. So anyway, we're glad we could have a role in your success. Thanks, Alie. All right, and so we're going to bring Mackenzie McAninch. Did I pronounce it correctly?
We got it.
All right, I appreciate it. So Mackenzie, I'll let you speak for yourself, but we've known each other for a good bunch of years now. That you are as an artist manager. You work with a fantastic artist named Stephanie Ann Johnson, who's a past grant recipient of Sonic Guild as well. And actually, I thought I would share this here, that it was actually something that Stephanie said at a education event we did 3 or 4 years ago, talking about some of the challenges she's faced touring, or that they've toured, or they've faced touring, excuse me, that was one of the inspirations for our tour support grant program in terms of trying to get money into artists' pockets to offset some of the challenges that they face. So anyway.
Oh, that's great to know. I'll pass it on to Stephanie for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
Mackenzie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, more so than I just did a little bit in terms of working with Stephanie.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I live in Seattle. Like you said, I manage Stephanie Ann Johnson. That's the only artist that I currently manage at the moment. I've been doing, I mean, I've been in the music industry now for well over 20 years, probably 23-ish at this point, something like that. I've been a booking agent. I've been an artist manager. I've been a talent buyer for a venue. I've been a radio DJ. I've been a music journalist. So I've touched a lot of different places. There's probably some that I'm even forgetting in there. I also have my own company. It's called National Seat Filling, and what I do is I do consulting for artists, for musicians, and not just only musicians though, but also people who want to become maybe like a manager or a booking agent. I do consulting sessions with them. So what I'll do is I'll sit down and do like a 60 or 90-minute consulting session and really just keep it only catered to what it is that they want to talk about. So we're not wasting the time for, wasting their time on things they don't really want to talk about. And I also offer a thing where I'll create custom festival spreadsheet lists for artists as well. And I keep them super affordable. It's literally like 50 cents a piece. And so, even if somebody has a budget for like $20, like I'll help them out if they just want like some festivals in the Pacific Northwest or whatnot. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do.
Awesome. Well, let me ask you, I know that we've talked a little bit before and whatnot, that you definitely in our conversations have talked about different tips sort of for emerging artists or for touring musicians. And I think that so much of going on tour is this unknown, right? Until you do it, you don't know, right? And so we're trying to like give people some advice of things to think about before they do it. So when you're thinking about working with Stephanie or other artists or consulting, like what are some of those things like? So if, I mean, we don't have to go 1 through 10 necessarily, but maybe give us some examples of things that you're thinking about that would be helpful to people to be thinking about when they're considering going on tour.
Well, for considering to going out on tour, I mean, it's kind of like what was already spoken about with some of the other panelists earlier of whatnot is like, do you really need to go and like try to manage your expectations when it comes to that? Like if you live in Seattle and you really want to get out there and go do a tour to all the way to Florida and back and you've never been to those markets, like you can do that. You just have to have the expectation that you're probably not going to make money doing that. And now maybe you've played a ton of gigs here locally and you've saved up a ton of money and you're like, you know what, we can take the hit. Let's get out there. Let's start, um, just getting your feet into different areas out there. So I think just managing expectations is a big part of it. Like knowing ahead of time, and especially if you have runs that have guarantees or part of it of like, this is probably what we're going to make about. These are kind of about what the expenses are going to look like and trying to pre-plan for that. That way you don't get out there and you're just like blown away like, oh, this is way more expensive than I thought, or we're not making nearly what I thought. What do we do? And, start having to go to credit cards and whatnot.
So in some ways you're saying it's not as much about how much you're going to make potentially as planning for how much you can potentially lose in these early stages where the guarantees or door deals or whatever they may be.
Potentially, yeah.
So when you're, let's say, working with Stephanie or another one of your clients, if you're thinking about getting out, I mean, are you thinking about short bits of touring, trying to go out for prolonged periods of time? What's your sort of strategy of building? So one thing that Ali talked about earlier was, like get at that point where if you can sell 300 tickets in your home market. So let's say you're at that point where you can sell 200 or 300 tickets in your home market. What is your thinking then as you're trying to grow that into other cities outside of like Seattle proper?
Yeah, I use what I call like the spider web method, which is, if you're building a spider web, a spider doesn't start on the outer parts and work its way in. It starts in the center. So, if you have your home market where you build up and you sell into 300 tickets, then slowly move out to the next markets. So, if you start doing that in Seattle where you're selling, then it's time to start moving to Everett or to Bellingham and Yakima and Spokane and Portland. Then once you start selling with those a little bit, step a little bit further out. Trying to do that, and that way you're hitting the same markets on the way home and back every time when you do that, rather than just be like, let's go to Florida. And and there's a whole bunch of big empty in the middle of it's like slowly work your way out when it comes to things like that.
When you're trying to build relationships or open up new markets or things, maybe give us a little bit of example of what's your correspondence like. You've identified that you have contact. You've built a list over the years of contacts in a bunch of different markets. But how do you, when you're thinking about something like that, please give an example of just sort of like what your initial correspondence might be with an agent or somebody at a booker at a club, something like that.
I think so much of it is about the pitch. I have a really good pitch for Stephanie. And that's something that I work on with consulting sessions too, is I can teach folks how to write a pitch. But if you have a good pitch, that goes so far. And especially if it has one of the key components I think to it is, if you're working on trying to get into a venue or a festival, just have a YouTube clip, even if it's just, not great quality, something just off of your cell phone, of you performing live, and put that in the, in the pitch of this is what we're like live. And then especially let's say that there's a big guitar solo at 2 minutes and 2.5 minutes into it for 40 seconds, put that in big bold letters and be like, watch this part. And just to try to get their attention, because agents and all those different kind of folks, they're super busy, they don't have time to read. That's not the place for your 10 paragraph biography. When you're trying to make the pitch, it's very, very quick of who are you? What do you sound like? Who do you sound like? Where have you been? What have you done? What do you look like? The end. So just a couple quick paragraphs.
So would you advise doing a YouTube video or a video of the band performing live as opposed to a music video type video to a recorded version of a song?
If you're trying to book for festivals and venues, I would say yes. But if you have a professional quality live performance, that's the best. So I'll just, for transparency, I use Stephanie's performance on KEXP. That's what I use for every single pitch to every new person right there, because for one thing, it's got clout because everybody knows KEXP. And two, just the quality is very, very good. And it shows a really great example of if you hire us, this is what you're going to get, rather than sending, a music video professionally made that we worked on, or sending MP3s,
Well, I think you've identified something there with the KXP component, is that it's much better to have other people singing your praises than you telling people how great you are. So are there other sources like KXP you're lucky enough that from Stephanie's case you have that? Would you include press quotes from other people talking about stuff, or metrics like social media numbers or streams or anything like that?
The metrics, they'll go and dig on their own. So unless they're really enormous, I don't really feel a need to put that in there. And plus they change so quick. I don't have the time to constantly update it unless there's I'm sure there's apps that do that for you or whatnot. Big quotes, yes. Especially if you've done even mild radio charting, even saying when that happened. I think it's just important to put your resume on there a little bit. These are the festivals that I've played, or these are the artists that I've opened for, and just keep that again in a very small paragraph. And maybe even just put it in bold letters, or not bold, but well, yeah, bold it, highlight it, just to grab their attention, because agents they don't have a ton of time, and they're going through a lot of the similar submissions. So you want to try to stick out a little bit.
How far out are you thinking about putting a tour together? How much lead time do you want to give yourself to do something like that?
I try to keep a plan 12 to 18 months, constantly a 12 to 18 month plan rolling at all times, and always trying to be working on the tours, 6 to 9 months at the least, for sure. Later than that is I would rather have more than that to work on, but sometimes things pop up or things get canceled out. But
could you maybe just unpack that a little bit more in terms of, if you have a 12 to 18 month plan going, touring's probably one component of that.
Right.
What else are you thinking about in that 12 to 18 month plan for the artists you're working with?
Yeah, when we're going to be releasing singles, or we're putting out an album. I'm scheduling recording when we're going to start recording new material, photo shoots, music videos, when to work on those different kind of things. And I just, one thing just jumped in my mind. I want to go back to one of the questions you asked earlier is about almost kind of like weekend warrior touring and things like that. I'm very much in favor of it. And to be honest, like we do a lot of that with Stephanie just because like the expenses are really high, taking a 5-piece band out. Now, when it's Stephanie's solo and things, like, yeah, we'll kind of stretch out and do a week or two at a time, but it's just so expensive to be touring out heavily right now that to me, I consider a tour 2, 3, 4 dates. Like that's a tour. It doesn't have to be like a 1 month tour. Like if weekend warrior tours, do it, Thursday through Sunday, go home, work your day job and head back out. Like,
Do you have any thoughts on, let's say, we're a little bit more geographically challenged in the Pacific Northwest than other parts of the country.
yeah.
But do you ever think, like, from trying to move a career forward, is it better to get out and do 4 or 5 dates within 250 miles of the city that you're in? Or is it better to spend that money to like fly down and try and do a showcase in LA, or try to build a scale in like a larger city market? Have you ever tried to figure out which of those might make more sense for you as a manager?
Absolutely staying closer to home for sure. Unless, that one big one of those places like you're sure that it's going to, you know, really, really elevate your career. Now, it's good to build resumes for sure, to try to hop on, get onto those things. But, yeah, trying to put all those eggs into one basket for that one hope. Like if an example could be like South by Southwest, like unless you really have a great touring, a great tour lined up that's probably even with guarantees and all those things, and a really fantastic guarantee at South by Southwest, I wouldn't recommend just going down just to do it, just to play South by because it's South by Southwest. Like everyone is trying to go there to do the exact same thing, and just trying to tour there and back is going to be difficult. Again, unless like you're just kind of your pockets are kind of filled and you're like, we've got some money to burn a little bit, let's go down there and put that on a resume. So it's kind of like depends on each situation.
Well, that's always the delta, right, between touring and vacationing, right? Like, and so both can be great, but the artists have to be comfortable with the outcomes. Like if you're going to spend the money and, I've seen many an artist get broken by spending a ton of money and a lot of expectations on a South by Southwest to get down there to play for like 6 people in a room, and 3 of them are people that they know from Seattle already.
And the sound person who's probably just getting paid in beer or something. Yeah.
What else are you thinking about, like in terms of trying to be touring as economically as possible? You talked about spiderweb touring, or in terms of like hubbing, basically like some maybe sleeping in your own bed, but playing 3 or 4 different cities over the course of a weekend or a long weekend or something like that. What else are you guys looking at to try to save money while you're out on the road these days? Because you got to get from point A to point B. So gasoline is going to cost what it costs. What other things are you thinking about to try to be more economical where possible?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a lot of different just little small tricks and things that you can do. Um, gosh, let me
Do you try to stay in with friends or family or acquaintances on the road, or do you usually budget for hotels, or what's your thinking there?
We do, yeah. Look at Turo for sometimes Turo can get you good deals on just renting vehicles. Airbnb is sometimes better than hotels for lodging for yourself and the band. Sometimes it's not. You just kind of have to do the research on those a little bit. Uh, I'm a big believer in still having an email list out at every show. And one of the things that you could put on there also is like a little checkbox and have it saying, are you open to hosting a private concert? And let people check yes, because you can do a private show like on an off day on a Tuesday in some small town and kind of make like under the table money. But sometimes those folks, they'll put you up, so those are things that could save you money, or they'll feed you and whatnot. So yeah, that's a way there. Yeah.
What sort of things are you thinking about from safety standpoint? Just like, I mean, there's getting point A to point B and, not letting somebody that's wasted behind the wheel of the car to drive or things like that. But in terms of keeping your equipment safe, your vehicle safe, different things like that? Are you thinking about that before you send Stephanie out on the road?
Absolutely. Well, first off, I always go too, so it's on me. But guitars always go in every night, no matter what, no matter how long, no matter how tired you are. Like the ultra expensive stuff, it has to come into the hotel at the end of the night. Never leave the van or whatnot. Make it look, if somebody looks in the window, there's nothing to be seen. No equipment and those kind of things. Again, work on bringing them inside. Just for like equipment kind of safety things. But another thing for personal safety things is something that I started doing many years after it's a habit I'd like to see folks maybe take on, is after the Paris shootings that happened, roughly 10 years ago now. Like I knew one of the drummer who was involved with that and survived it, thankfully. And from there, one thing that I did was I try to go, especially to new venues I've never been to before. When we first get there for load in, I will ask the venue employee who's assigned to us the day. I'll ask them to walk me through the entire building and show me every exit and every out plan. And then like after I've gone and done that, while the band is, setting up, doing sound check and all that, I like to have like a band meeting, and we talk about it. Like, look, if everything hits the fan, if there's a fire, if there's an unfortunate situation like the Paris thing, here's the plan. That's the exit door. That's how you're getting out. When everybody gets outside, blah, blah, blah is where we're going to meet. There's a rally point. It's a little time consuming to do that. And if I'm honest, I don't always remember to do it at every venue, because sometimes I'm a one-man show and I'm busy doing things. But it's a habit and a routine I would like to see folks work on, because it could be incredibly important in the case of an emergency.
We're coming in toward the end of time, so thank you again, Mackenzie, for doing this. I'm curious, from a mental health standpoint, we talked about physical safety. How do you guys on the road or in general try to manage expectations about, you don't know how many people are going to show up at a gig night to night? How do you try to always make sure you're having as good a show as possible? And are you able to, if it's bad, able to laugh at it rather than cry about it? I mean, what are the sort of strategies for musicians? Because it's never exactly what you think it's going to be once you get out on the road.
Yeah, it never will be, that's for sure. And it's just like anything else in life. There's going to be good days and there's going to be bad things, but you can't take them personal. That's a huge thing in this industry. Like if you take things really, really personal, you're going to have a difficult time. Like maybe a lot of people didn't come because there's so many different things that could be in play. It could be like the weather. It could be, a multitude of things, but you can't take offense to that. And, there's going to be bad shows. Like the biggest bands in the world still have bad shows. It still happens, but you can't let that, you got to be able to let that roll off your back for sure, and to be able to laugh at it. And like, it's Steph and I say, we're like, we have the good ones and we have the bad ones, and like remember the bad ones when you have the good moments, and when you have and vice versa too. If you're having a bad moment, be like, well, we've had a great show before. And now if it consistently starts to be bad moments over and over and over and over, that might be the universe telling you something. But yeah,
I think that's another panel on the universe telling you something. So
yeah, we just try to be grateful that we even have an opportunity to do it. It's incredible. We get to do something that we do that we absolutely love and get to make money at it. It's still mind-blowing to this day.
I mean, the journey is often more rewarding than the destination. So it's awesome. Well, Mackenzie, I really appreciate it. I want to thank Alie, both the Alies. Today, we at Sonic Guild love our partnership with the Recording Academy and love working with Timmy and Jessica Toon. And that our next section on advocacy is going to be happening Tuesday, August 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And I encourage you to go check out the Recording Academy's website, where these will be archived, and on YouTube. And then always you can come find us at sonicguild.org. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.